Hello and welcome all of you to today's Oracle Technology Webcast on OLL Live. It's great to see so many of you here this morning. That's great. My name's Natalie Mackay. I work in the Oracle UK and Ireland Technology Sales Consulting Group, and I'm your host for today. Before we start, I want to run over a couple of points on how this session is going to be run. So firstly, this webcast is being recorded, and the recording will be available in a few days. You'll be able to get to the recording from the website that you registered for this event, also from the Oracle Learning Library, and also from the Oracle Learning channel on YouTube. So just go to YouTube and put in Oracle Learning channel, you'll soon find it there. During the webcast, do feel free to post any questions you have using the chat window or the Q&A window, whichever you prefer. You can find that from the toolbar at the top of your screen. Please direct your questions to either all the panelists or all the participants, whichever you prefer. We'll answer as many questions as we can via the chat during the session, but also we're going to have a specific Q&A section towards the end of the webcast where we'll be talking through some of the questions. Do also remember that today's webcast is part of a series, and you might be interested in some of the other ones. If you are curious, do make your way back to the launch.oracle.com website that you can see here on this slide and have a look at the other webcasts if it's something that interests you. And finally, before we go any further, I need to show you our legal disclaimer slide. Now on to today's topic, which is what's new in the Webcenter 11.1.1.8. This topic will be presented by Jonathan Ives, who's a very experienced Webcenter sales consultant here in the UK. Helping Jonathan are two people, are Gabriel Sandu, who's an Oracle Webcenter sales consultant as well, who's based in Bucharest, and also Priyavina Kopal, who's based in Bangalore. So thanks very much. Without further ado, I'll hand you over to Jonathan. And over to you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Natalie. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm going to take you through a fairly brisk walk through what's new in Webcenter 11.1.1.8. Now, just to summarize, Webcenter has three principal components. Webcenter Portal for creating portals, Webcenter Content for managing websites, digital assets, documents, files, images, video, etc. And Webcenter Science for building compelling web experiences and customer experiences. Each of these has had significant improvements and upgrades in 11.1.1.8. I'm going to go through each of them in turn. There'll be some common themes, and as we go through, those will emerge. So let's start with Webcenter Portal. The two major themes of this release are around the tooling that you use to create a portal and support for mobile devices. And actually, you'll see this again with content, and you'll see this with sites as well. So when we talk about tooling and knowledge worker tooling, what we really mean here is the ability to create a portal and manage a portal in a browser by a user that doesn't have Java skills and doesn't necessarily need HTML skills. So it essentially means that a portal can be created from templates. Its creation process is very quick. It's taken to essentially a wizard process. And once you've created the portal, you can customize it from a library of assets that you have, which in fact is in the right part there. I'll show you in a bit more detail in a moment. You can customize the pages, you can customize who has access to that site. And this is all done within a browser, and anybody that's familiar with any kind of web experience, and if you use things like WordPress, etc., this is a very familiar type of model. So it means that a knowledge worker can create the portal and manage the portal without recourse to people who are specific HTML or JavaScript, CSS experts. Now, the other key thing around this is about making this available. So in terms of how you access the portal, having created the portal, you might access it through an existing desktop browser. You might access it through a mobile device. In the last year or so, we've seen a number of people using mobile devices to access the internet exceed the number of people using desktop devices. And there's a generation below us that are probably using mobile devices all the time as their point of entry. So the point is, with the new tooling, I can create the portal, I can check that it runs correctly both on a desktop browser and on a mobile device. But I can also create profiles based on specific device templates. So it might be that on certain devices, maybe phones from a particular manufacturer, I want to lay the portal out in a different way. And we have the ability to create device profiles and families of device profiles that enable us to do that, and we can test it inside the portal builder itself before we actually have to try it on the individual devices. Finally, all of this capability, we can also make a choice as to whether we want to generate and build our own mobile apps. So this is different. This is where we're actually building a native application, either using native mobile or the native SDKs of the devices. So when people talk about mobility and multi-channel, we really cover a wide variety of types of deployment, ranging from a desktop browser that is responsive and works well on a wide range of devices, specific profiles, and finally through to a truly mobile, locally installed application. Now, let's go back to our issue about the tooling and etc. So in 1.1.8 we have the portal builder. So this is new. Previously we had something called Spaces and we had something called Composer. But we've really taken those concepts and come up with something called Portal Builder. And this is where you assemble your portal. It runs in a browser, so the screenshot that you see there is running inside a standard web browser. You create a portal from a range of templates, and a typical organization might define its own template, so it might have one for collaborative work, one for knowledge management, one for self-service. You can create the hierarchy and structure, you can create the pages, you can lay out the pages, you can pull in assets. So the idea is that a user can, perhaps within a marketing department or not necessarily from an IT function, has the ability to create and customize that portal experience. Now, JDeveloper, which is our internet development environment, is really used for creating some very specific components within that. So, for example, you can use JDeveloper to create new skins or new page styles and new templates, but you can also use it to create the task flows and the portlets that you have as assets that you can drop into Portal Builder. And people use our portal and they never necessarily use JDeveloper. So it's an option there, and it's typically used by a different type of person who will use the Portal Builder, but it's used as a very specific set of tooling, whereas Portal Builder is really aimed at a general user who is comfortable with this kind of drag and drop web-based experience. So if we try and take that and layer that onto different people in the organisation, here we've got a cast of characters. We've got Karen, who's a knowledge worker, and she's the person who builds the portal, creates the UI, she manages maybe the search and the wikis. So she's managing the portal and she's creating new portals within the environment. Then she might occasionally access or turn to Ari and ask him to do some more technical work. So he might start to add some capabilities to the portal, maybe working around the mobility, maybe using some of the capabilities to access some of the back office systems. But again, not needing to rely on writing lots of code. Now, if code needs to be written, we've got Dave the developer here, and Dave uses JDeveloper. He creates the new task flows and portlets, which then become reusable assets that both Karen and Ari can use in their day-to-day jobs in the portal. Now, in this example, we've split it out into four. So I've got Sayed here, who's the administrator. So he manages some of the other kind of more general capabilities across all of the portals. So that might be around managing things like the search configuration, managing the portal metrics. We have analytics tools within the portal. So he might be interested in what are the pages people are going to, what are the searches they're performing, maybe what are the searches they're performing that return no results, because that's interesting, because obviously it then lends itself to writing some content if people are searching for that. So different people, different roles that they have, supported by Webcenter. So as I mentioned earlier, creating a portal is choosing from a range of templates. I can define a creation time, the pages that I want to have, and I can do things like provide a friendly URL. So I go through 3 steps and my portal is created. Some of the other things that are new in 11.1.1.8 around refining the way that searches are handled and presented to the user. So for example, now we have faceted searching and scope searching, and this improves on the capabilities we had before. So it means that I can, when I search for something within the portal, it separates them by attributes. So this might be metadata. So it might be, I want to see the documents that are returned, but I might want them grouped in a number of subheadings based on the department or whatever. I can also have scope searches, so depending on on where I am in the portal, the search is adapted to the type of searches I might want to do within that particular screen or context. And having returned my results, I can rank them by different criteria. So, for example, you see on the left, rank by date or author or title, and here you can see some metadata on the right relating to that particular document. And these metadata fields, the examples here are standard ones for the Webcenter content, but typically they would map onto the business requirements or the business metadata and taxonomy that a customer uses. Now, here's a better look at the portal builder. So the central region is how you design your portal, and here you see a portal that's got a recent activities pane taking up about 2/3 of the width, and then we've got announcements, events, and links. On the left-hand panel, we've got the map of the pages, and we've got the documents, discussions, announcements, and all of these are configurable. We can drag and drop things from here, we can move them around. And on the right-hand side, we see our library of assets. So we see things like our alerts and updates, our analytics, our content management, and all of these are configurable. So a customer might have their own list of applications. So if they were building a self-service portal, they might have Company A's self-service portlets as a library of components, and there might be a component in there for somebody to find out how much vacation they had left or how much they received in their last salary, and these could then be just dragged onto the desktop by, for example, Karen, our portal builder, and added to the layout. So I mentioned about mobility, and mobility I'll come back to again and again for sort of Webcenter products. But here, what we're talking about here is defining different devices, and we can have rules that cause the portal to present itself slightly differently. So you can see in the top screenshot a list of devices, and you can extend this. Obviously, the number of mobile devices is growing at a huge rate. Models change probably daily, so you can define new devices, and then you can group them together. So you might have behaviors which are common to a group of devices. For example, you might have Apple tablets or Android tablets, or you might have Apple phones, or you might have desktop browsers. And you can use these device settings to actually drive the behavior of the portal. You might use it, for example, to determine what images you use from the portal. So the aspect ratio of images might be different if you're running on a small screen device from running on a 16:9 format desktop, for example. There may even be options that you don't present to users on mobile devices, but you do present to them if they're in the office coming in over your corporate LAN. The other nice thing is you can preview what it looks like. So having started to build your portal and recognize the different devices, what you can then do is preview how that's going to look, and you can change the orientation, see how it looks in landscape, see how it looks in portrait. And that speeds up the whole process, and it also means that you don't have to equip every developer with every device. They can preview here and have confidence that it will look appropriate when it actually is accessed from those devices. So everything I've described up to this point around mobility is really about a web-based experience. It might be on a desktop, it might be on a mobile device, but we can take this a stage further. The latest release of Webcenter incorporates the latest versions of ADF, Application Development Framework from Oracle, and that supports things like HTML5 and CSS3. It's got lots of refinements, a lot around performance improvement, so different ways of compressing the JavaScript that's delivered to the browser, different ways of improving the bandwidth, and some of the capabilities around images. So, for example, how you handle the chroming around portlets when you have curved corners. Traditionally, this was done by retrieving images from the server. That's all now part of CSS3. So it means that essentially the amount of data that's going to the browser is reduced, it's more efficient, and we have a whole new range of components available to the developer to build in ADF. So things like sunbursts, timelines, and multi-file uploads from drag and drop. So a new set of capabilities there that we get because we've built this all on ADF. Now, a couple of things around administration. So this is a long way away from user experience, but this is really around the capabilities that an administrator would see. So we've got things like lifecycle enhancements, search refinements, the support for Enterprise Manager, and something called impersonation. And I'll just have a quick look through these. So going quickly through this, lifecycle enhancement is really about tooling that enables us to better assist the administrator of this environment. So for example, the scripting that a typical WebLogic server administrator would use to deploy a server to run a portal or to take down a portal to do upgrades or do backups. So we've improved the scripting capabilities there. We've also provided a number of refinements about how you back up the portal and how you integrate it with the capabilities, the underlying Oracle and WebLogic server capabilities in this space. So we talked a little bit about search already, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but we've got ways of restricting the sources of searching that a person could use. So these are just admin screens that somebody building a portal could use if they just wanted to restrict searches to either particular groupings of content or particular attributes of that content. Now in 11.1.1.8 we've incorporated something called impersonation. And what that basically means is it's the secure way of granting a person the ability to impersonate another person. So I suppose the closest approximation to this I can think of is where perhaps a manager might give an administrator or a PA the ability to act on their behalf when managing someone's diary. Okay, we're familiar probably with that concept. Well, this is akin to that. So essentially I can give somebody the right to securely impersonate me. Well, why would we do that? Well, it might be that in my absence I want somebody to take over the management of a particular aspect of the portal, or I might want to allow them to manage blogs or wikis on my behalf. So it's a way of providing this capability, which in a typical organization is very useful to have. Now, Enterprise Manager, I mentioned this earlier, so now we have support for support for WebCenter Portal within Enterprise Manager. So that means on standard Enterprise Manager screens I can see all kinds of metrics about the activity of the portal, its status, its responsiveness, and I can manage it along with the application server, the database, and the entire infrastructure from Oracle through one single management console. And here you see a number of typical screens. So for example, here I'm looking at particular pages, the page throughput, the processing time. And it might be that I decide that if certain pages or certain aspects of the application are busier than others, I can reallocate resources accordingly. So that was a quick overview of 11.1.1.8 Portal. I'm now going to look at the content component of WebCenter, WebCenter content. And again, the themes here are around refinements to the user interface and support for mobile apps. We've got some refinements around the imaging and capture, so that's specifically for people who are scanning in physical documents and storing them within WebCenter content, possibly as part of an e-business application or Siebel or any of the other applications that Oracle provide. And a number of integration options. They're listed here as platform updates, but there's some interesting things that we have around the capabilities of integrating WebCenter content. So first of all, WebCenter content has a new web UI, and as you'll see there, it's very consistent with the look and feel of the portal. And it's a simplified UI from the older WebCenter content UI. So you can see here screens showing documents using thumbnails and descriptions, or just using thumbnails there, a quick way to look through a library of digital assets. So easy to use and consistent with the portal, and with many of the refinements you'd expect, so the ability to drag documents in, to select a range of images. The other nice thing with the new UI is it's decoupled from the actual server components of WebCenter content. It makes no difference to a user, but from an architecture point of view, it means that you've got new ways of deploying this, and you might have servers dedicated to providing user interface, talking to content servers. And I guess that's akin to the way that maybe an application in ADF pulls talks to an Oracle database at the back end. We decouple the presentation layer from the repository, and we have that capability now with the new Webcenter Content UI. We also have a mobile application for Webcenter Content, and this is very much aimed at organisations who have perhaps field workers. They might be technicians or salespeople, people who go out and visit customers or sites, and they need to take a whole volume of documents with them. So if I'm a repair technician, I might want to take a set of documentation for something I'm going out in the field to repair. A tablet computer is an idle device, and this is really aimed at those. I can take away a whole set of documentation with me. I can be underneath the piece of equipment that I need to fix with a tablet, looking at images, looking at documents, looking at video, which I've downloaded. And when I go online, it will synchronise if there's been any updates, so I can pick those up. Similarly, for sales workers in the field, if they want to take the latest list of prices or the latest brochure information, they can take that around on their mobile device. Now, a number of refinements to document capture. So, for example, Oracle Document Capture now, which formerly was ODBC and OBC, it now has a completely web-based UI. It's all been ported to Java Enterprise Edition, runs on top of the standard WebLogic server environment, which means it integrates with all of those capabilities around enterprise management, around the WLST scripting language for managing that environment. So it means that it's very much part of the Fusion middleware fold now, cross-browser support, and some simplifications in the architecture. So a couple of things here. We've made a number of refinements around Oracle Forms recognition. So this is the ability to intelligently scan documents, typically invoices, where you don't know precisely where the invoice number or the customer number or the sales number is on the form. So we've incorporated a number of new refinements. This technology is something in Oracle OLL. We've taken on board the latest version. And so some of those benefits we get by upgrading that consistently with the latest version. We're also localized in 16 languages, so that increases the footprint and increases the range of document languages that product supports. Now on the SharePoint side, this is very interesting. So essentially what we're saying here is now people who use Microsoft SharePoint can integrate it with Webcenter content in such a way that content as it evolves in SharePoint is migrated into Webcenter content. So it might be that you have a number of SharePoint servers, and when documents reach a certain version or a certain maturity, they are automatically migrated into Webcenter content. And Webcenter content provides the records management, the auditing, the security. So as documents are formed in the sort of white heat of SharePoint creation, so people collaborating very quickly on a document. But once those documents need to go into a longer life cycle, then something like Webcenter content is the ideal place to put them. So essentially what this means is that content moves into Webcenter content over time based on metadata, based on date or time. And at that point, corporate retention policies can be applied to that content in one single place. It also provides a single place to search for content, which is another challenge for organizations that want to establish if they have any legal obligation or they have any particular issues that they need to find within their content store relating to policy, legal requirement, or records retention. Now finally, let's look at Webcenter Science. So Webcenter Science is about creating compelling digital experiences. And these are, the key things here is multi-channel, so the ability to provide compelling mobile web experience alongside desktop web, integration with external content. So traditionally, Webcenter Science has had the ability to build very quickly compelling websites using content managed within itself. Now we have the ability to build websites using content that's external to Webcenter Science. And finally, enhancements around search and personalization capabilities. So these are the three messages, and again, we see mobility being a key message. So now, as with the portal, when I build a site, I can immediately see how this looks. So as part of the tooling, and again, the screen that you see there, that's running in a browser. That's not a desktop tool. That's just simply running inside a web browser. So when I'm building my site, I can preview it and check that it looks okay in the particular devices that I know my employees or my customers are going to be using. And also we can detect what the type of device is. We can make decisions based on the resolution, the form factor, or the capability. And again, that's all based on producing HTML5 and supporting things like responsive design, where possible, we make the content adapt to the available space on the device or the available capabilities. Now, one of the really interesting capabilities of Webcenter Science is the ability to personalize the content based on the visitor's behavior. Typically, a user of a Webcenter Science site would be navigating around the site. They haven't necessarily logged into the site. They probably don't. So over time, we build up a profile based on the content they've looked at, and that's based on rules. And building those rules is now available to anybody within, say, the marketing department. There's no really hard work to be done here. It's simply setting up rules and filters, as you see in the screenshot there, which means that creating really compelling and really personalized sites that adapt to the behavior of the visitor is now very easy for people to do. There's no really advanced things to be done here, but also we have the ability to extend this and invoke things like Oracle RTD. Now, Oracle RTD is essentially able to apply personalization based on back office things. So, for example, if I visit a site and I click on certain images or certain articles, over time, this tooling builds up a profile of me who decides the kinds of articles I'm interested in, or types of content, or maybe the kinds of offers in a retail site it would like to present to me. RTD can also talk to the back-end systems and apply some logic from there. So it might be that I'm offered special deals on items that happen to have very high stock levels, for example, in a commerce site. So that's where RTD is talking to the back office, maybe the stock control systems, establishing what things we have a large number of, and building that into the equation that determines what products or what content I'm offered on the screen. And all of that segmentation tooling is now available through a REST API as well. So this kind of a capability can be exposed to people on maybe mobile devices. If you're in a very rapidly moving industry where changing these filters on a daily or maybe hourly basis is important, then having access to it from the widest range of devices and connections is important. So one of the other new features in Webcenter Sites is the advanced URL management. So here we can have what are called vanity URLs or friendly URLs, which are easy to set up. People are, I guess they expect the URL to reflect the organization's name or reflect a particular page structure. So very easily we can set up these URLs within the site's tooling, and it allows those URLs to be customized and conform to the particular corporate standards, best practices, etc. Now, another capability that's new in 11.1.1.8 is to access content or to manage content within Webcenter Sites without actually residing in Webcenter Content. Webcenter Content is a highly scalable content management system. Webcenter Sites consumes content, so obviously the logical step was to link the two products together. So it might be that content lives within Webcenter Content, it evolves in there, and at some point it is mapped via the UI in Webcenter Sites such that content that's available to a web author is actually coming from Webcenter Content, and that is copied from Webcenter Content into Webcenter Sites. So it might be that Webcenter Content really is your vault of images, content, brochures, etc. And those images that are deemed to be appropriate for the website, or maybe are the corporate standard, are migrated out of Webcenter Content, pushed into Webcenter Sites, from which they can be laid on the site, And as those images or as that branding changes, that flow from content into sites continues. So that means that WebCenter Sites is always picking up the latest approved content, and that's subject to all of the benefits of WebCenter content in terms of records management, retention management, audit log, security, etc. It also means that WebCenter Sites can exploit the digital asset management capabilities of WebCenter content. WebCenter content can transform images into a range of resolutions, into a range of formats, similarly with video, or any file format. So it can really use WebCenter content as an engine to get the best content out onto those rapidly evolving corporate websites. Now, the other thing that we can do is reference content that's stored somewhere completely different. We're not bringing the content into sites per se. We're simply enabling a marketeer, for example, to create a site and see a library of images or a library of videos where they are actually stored somewhere else. The user doesn't have to worry about going somewhere, finding URL, cut and pasting, getting it right, understanding all the syntax of YouTube videos or Wright videos. They simply see it as an asset. And that means that more and more organizations are using different channels to present themselves out to their customers or their citizens. YouTube might be one, Brightcove another. There could be a range of external channels through which they market themselves. So rather than have to duplicate this across multiple different systems, we can simply add that to the tooling. So here we might see on the right some video footage that's come from YouTube. The person creating the site didn't know that that was coming from YouTube. They simply dragged it from the library of possible images. And as I said, it's a reference, so it's transparent to the marketeer or the person who's building the site. Now, I touched on RTD, real-time decisions, earlier, and this is really powerful. WebCenter Sites has always been able to make decisions about the content it presents to somebody based on their behaviors, their browser, possibly even where they're located. So they get a very personalized experience, which is key to any good website. What RTD can bring to that is the ability to combine that with information from other systems. So that might factor in availability of items local to where that person is. It might factor in various aspects of maybe e-business suite or self-service apps. If it was an employee website where maybe the employee needed to see content that was pertinent to the location they were based at or the role they performed. So RTD provides a useful join between the recommendation mechanism building for sites and the back office systems and the custom applications that every organization has, which might actually be nice to be factored into that. I used an example earlier. If somebody was buying something and from a retail site building, say, WebCenter Sites, if we knew that they had large stock in their area, we might offer them a better offer than if they were in an area that had lower levels of stock. And that would be an example where RTD could make that information available to the logic behind the site. Some of the other kind of refinements around the tooling in WebCenter Sites, so things like the social elements of building a site, that's things like polls and ratings and reviews, is all built now into the standard tooling. So if I want to drag a comment region onto a page, or I want to make polls or ratings, I can do that. We've also extended the range of social media logins. We've added Google Plus to that, in addition to things like Facebook, etc. And the installation, which used to have a separate install for both community and gadget server, that's all been rolled into a single install. So the installation of the product is easier than it was. There's less components, and that's been streamlined. So the whole process of coupling content with social media, with gadgets, has been dramatically simplified. Okay, now, at this point, I'm a little bit ahead of schedule. I don't know if we have any questions at this point. Okay, so I'll start the ball rolling. I've had a question regarding the relationship of spaces and framework to Portal Builder. So in the previous version of WebCenter, the portal essentially used, this portal was built using something called the WebCenter framework, and we included an application with spaces, which was really a pre-built portal. So where we've evolved to is that with the new portal builder, this really takes over where Spaces started. So this takes the capability of WebCenter Spaces and builds this into a fully functional portal builder. So before we had essentially two ways to build a portal, and they were suitable for different scenarios. Now we have Portal Builder, which is the single way we build the portal, but the JDeveloper framework is really used to what it's really good at, which is building those compelling ADF task flows and those compelling portlets. So where perhaps before it was a little bit confused maybe for customers as to which technology they could use, it's very clear now that you build using Portal Builder. It's entirely browser-based. It's easier to use, and JDeveloper is really for the detailed problems of maybe integrating with particular back office systems or particular capabilities that are not provided as part of the portal. I should say that the portal provides something 200 plus different components, task flows that provide things like integration with email or calendar. So a lot of people will take the portal, use Portal Builder, and that may be all they ever need to integrate with a wide range of systems within the organization. Any other questions at that point? Okay, I'm just looking in the Q&A panel. So there was a question about rapid application integration. I'll try my best there. So we have a range, the portal has a range of technologies you could use to integrate into back office systems. So for example, you can use things like the Pagelet Producer. Pagelet Producer is a way of accessing systems which maybe you don't have a good web service API or don't have REST APIs to. So Pagelet Producer is a way of quickly building a web UI or a component that you can plug into your portal that might talk to a back office system. So it's a way of getting data from those systems, providing data to those systems where no other APIs exist or maybe no other appropriate technologies or access is available. Then going through, we obviously have a range of increasingly sophisticated solutions right up to building web service-based ADF task flows. And that's, if you like, the preferred route. So you could have a solution based on simple things like iframes. You could have a more sophisticated solution based on Pagelet Producer. And I suppose the final solution is to have web service type calls from an ADF application. That's the most sophisticated. So a lot of organizations would use something like the Pagelet Producer to evolve into prototyping, build something rapidly, and then that might require then a full ADF task flow to be built, or it actually might be suitable for the job. So you really have got a broad set of tools in the toolkit here, ranging from things that are quick and easy to use right the way through to things that are longer and more sophisticated, but you know, where you really need that kind of functionality. So I'm just having a look in the Q&A panel. So there was a question about WFR be available deployed on a server. Well, I think in 11.1.1.8, my understanding is that that is now deployed on WebLogic Server. I might need to go and get some more details. So that was a question from Kieran McDonald. So Kieran, I will perhaps get an answer back to you on that one. But as my understanding is in 11.1.1.8, the forms recognition is available, has been ported to WebLogic Server and can run within that environment. But I'd like to confirm that, so that if you forgive me, I'll take that one away and I'll get a definite answer to you. We will have your email address, so I'll answer that via email. So I think that's think covers most of the questions that I've seen on there. So if nobody else has any questions, does anybody have questions over the voice link?
None that I can see, Jonathan.
Okay. So, as Natalie said at the start, this particular presentation was one of a range of that we're providing at the moment. So you can see the URL there, so launch.oracle.com/professional.uk Ireland Tech Webcast. And obviously you can also get replays of this series of presentations through this mechanism or through YouTube.